interesting listening to the discussions this morning. The key themes that have been talked about, digital identity, approaches to transformation, security and privacy. These have all been under active consideration as Registers of Scotland moves through its digital transformation programme. So Seth and I will be able to bring out some of the thinking, some of our approaches, and some of the issues that we've faced. Just a little bit more about Registers of Scotland. If I can get this to work. Oh, there we go. Oh. I'm sure this is me because I'm having the same problem with my phone today. There we go. Oh no, maybe it's not me. Oh, superb. Yeah, I mean, at a very narrow functional level, Registers of Scotland, self-funding, quasi-commercial, we look after 17 registers, mainly to do with land and property. And we've been doing that for an awful long time. One of our registers is 600 years old. One of our property registers has been going since 1617, has its 400th anniversary next year. So, well-established registers, people are used to dealing and interacting with them. So, big challenges when it comes to changing them. We're also responsible for making the information that's in these registers publicly available. And we're unusual in an international context because our registers are public in the widest sense possible. Absolutely anyone can access the information in our registers. So if you want to know what properties a particular individual owns in Scotland, you can inspect the registers. If you want to know who owns a particular property, equally, you can go and search that as well. Transparency is very much the key, and that's very much a buzzword and continues to be a buzzword in Scotland, and certainly in terms of privacy. Privacy is it's not particularly high up on the agenda in Scotland. There's nobody actively campaigning to restrict the information that we make available. That functional description of ROS kind of masks really the important role that we have. We're part of the core key infrastructure of Scotland's economy. And that's because we underpin the conveyancing marketplace in Scotland. And that marketplace is worth about £35 billion a year in terms of sales, and it's reckoned to employ certainly in excess of 100,000 people within Scotland alone. So it's critically important what we do carefully and securely. I like this slide because 7 years ago we were the man in the boat as an organisation. We were focused on business as usual. We weren't paying any great attention to what was coming towards us and what the future held. And as ever in organisations, you need a catalyst for change, and the catalyst that we had was a new chief executive comes in. The chief executive completely replaced the senior management team. So we now have a senior management team that is committed to digital change and is positively enthused by it. We're not seeking to do everything on our own. It was interesting looking at the slide, from the Digital Transformation Office, because it certainly emphasises building up your own in-house skills. And we certainly agree with that to an extent. But we recognise even if you do want to do that, it's the issues that Dawn mentioned, which is there is a difficulty in getting the key skills that you need in for digital transformation. And there's also a recognition there are other parties out there in the private sector that have really, really valuable skills which, if used correctly, can really help the public sector. And we've been working for a number of years now with Informed Solutions. They delivered our first digital register back in 2012, and more recently and currently they're helping us with our digital transformation programme. Great. It was interesting again seeing the Digital Transformation Office slide because our approach very much aligns with what they're doing. We've got a customer-centred approach to transformation, and very many of the principles which Rachel outlined, we live and breathe. It's interesting with a customer-centred approach because obviously it takes your customer to want to interact with you as well. And we issued on social media a request last year for our customers to actually engage with us, and we were a bit concerned that we wouldn't get much of a response. But within 2 weeks, we had over 120 responses from firms across the conveyancing marketplace in Scotland. And that's really good. There's a real enthusiasm out there for change, which is great for us. And it means that we can work with them to identify priorities, agree solutions, road test changes, prepare the right guidance, all the usual good stuff. As well as dealing, though, with the customer or the user of new digital channels, we also have a a high degree of interaction with the various regulatory bodies in Scotland, so groups like the Law Society, state agency bodies, lending institutions and other public sector bodies. And the desire there is very much that we get agreement at a strategic level. And there's also another fundamental point. It's, as much as it's really good to engage with individual solicitors and other conveyancing professionals, when push comes to shove, they all stand back and say, well, yeah, we like the system, but unless the Law Society signs it off, we're absolutely not using it. So we very much need the Law Society on board. In terms of what we're trying to achieve, on the registration side, it's pretty much a root and branch transformation of what we have. So it's dealing with front of house services, it's also dealing with the back office systems. So we're introducing a new case management system, document management, new mapping technology, we're tidying up, cleaning our data. All good things and all have a big impact behind the scenes. But I guess it's really the front of house activities which tend to capture the imagination. And what we're seeking to do there is support electronic conveyancing. And I say that, I emphasise the word support. We're not seeking to lead on this. It's interesting because certainly in land registration circles internationally, if you go back 10 years, there was a great, across the many jurisdictions in the world, there was a drive to introduce e-conveyancing, and that drive was coming from government bodies. And interestingly, that drive didn't really, there's very few examples of where e-conveyancing has actually taken off. And certainly there's no examples in the UK of that. And it's perhaps not surprising because, as a government body, our role is, we register information. We don't buy and sell houses. So why, it was deemed appropriate that government would try and introduce e-conveyancing systems. It was always going to be a tough ask. So we're seeking to support electronic conveyancing, and we're helped in Scotland by a very digitally proactive Law Society. And they've invested hard cash in two key digital enablers. The first one is they've invested in a new smart card practicing certificate for solicitors that comes with a digital signature that can be used to authenticate deeds. And the second thing they've done is they've gone into partnership with a software company to deliver a conveyancing portal for property solicitors. So the great thing is they're actually now actively pushing us and asking us for new digital channels that they can use so they can get a significant return on their investment. And the approach that we have with the Law Society and lenders, we're not simply seeking to replace, a very aged paper process with a digital solution that replicates that paper process. We're actually taking a step back and thinking, okay, how can we make things better for all participants in this process? And I'll give you just one example of it's a new digital channel that was introduced December 2015, and it's known as a digital advance notice system. And in Scotland, when you buy a property, your title's only good when you register the deed in your favour in our land register. And for various reasons, that act of registration will happen either days or weeks after you've passed your money over and received your deed in return. And during that period, there's a risk because you may have an unscrupulous seller who thinks, oh, I'll just sneakily sell the property to somebody else, or I'll take out a loan against the property, and that would then prejudice your title. Or you might just have an unlucky seller who happens to go bankrupt, and again, your title is prejudiced. And there was a whole industry which was developed to try and provide insurance for people. And on the commercial side, it was very difficult. You'd have armies of solicitors who would all congregate around either our office or the tax office around the dates of settlement to agree that everything could happen almost on the same day. In the residential sector, you had solicitors giving each other letters of undertaking that their clients wouldn't misbehave. But it was fraught, and there were a number of examples where people lost out, and they lost out in terms of significant sums of money. So working with the Law Society, we took a step back and thought, what we're trying to resolve here, what we're trying to do is provide some protection for the purchaser. So we introduced a new digital channel, we backed it up by new legislation as well, and it instead provides for the registration of a notice, which gives the purchaser absolute protection against mischievous actings of the seller for a particular period of time. And that new system has been a roaring success. We've had over 130,000 of these notices digitally recorded or digitally registered through that particular system. And we've continued iterate the system and improve it over the last year as well. So again, following the sort of guiding principles of the DTO, you roll something out and then you continue to improve based on feedback. But the customer experience and the feedback has been hugely positive. This year our focus is around mortgage deeds. We're taking the same approach to the discharge of mortgage deeds. We get about 100,000 of those a year. And again, we've been working with the parties to think, well, what is the best approach, and then how do we apply that in a digital world? So we have a new digital discharge system which will be launched later this year as well. On the information side, there's a very active land reform agenda in Scotland just now, and that's pushing this principle of transparency, transparency and access to information. And last year we were tasked by the Deputy First Minister in Scotland to take forward the development of a Scottish land and property information system, which will bring together a significant number of data sets, all to do with land and property, so provide a single route for accessing information on land and property. That's due to commence late next year. And this one's an interesting one because there's certainly potentially some significant security, not so much security, but privacy issues in there, because we will be aggregating a lot of data. Some of that data is purely around places, so there's no real issue there. But some of that data certainly includes information on people as well as places. So it was very interesting hearing what Don was saying about the Data Sharing Act, because we have nothing like that in Scotland. So there's nothing that we can actually look to offer us guidance, certainly not within our own jurisdiction. So we're having to take a look out with. And equally, work with people like the Information Commissioner in Scotland to make sure that we move forward in a way which is, meets the expectations that ministers have, but it's equally fair as well. Just a few words generally on security. It's interesting. I mean, we, as an organisation, our number one strategic objective is to preserve the integrity of the register. And that's perhaps not, there's no surprise there because of what we do being so important to Scotland's economic infrastructure. So public confidence in our data is absolutely key. So when it comes to any activities that might impact on that, we are absolutely risk averse. And we have what we call risk appetite statements for various things. But for something that might impact on the data that we hold, our risk appetite's low. We say we have a minimalist approach to risk in this area. But at the same time, we acknowledge there's a risk that if we don't move forward, we're not going to meet the expectations of customers, ministers, and indeed our own colleagues. So in terms of our risk appetite for transformation, it's high, and we describe ourselves as being hungry for change. And it has been suggested that the two risk appetite statements conflict, but we take a very different view. Our view is they're both valid, they're both necessary, and they're complementary. There's no point focusing purely on integrity, because if you do, then pretty much you end up, back being the man in the boat, and you're got this wave of expectation coming towards you, and you're not tackling it. And similarly, you don't want to push ahead with change in a way which is going to undermine the core and very critical information that we have. So there's a balance to be struck. We're very conscious we're doing a lot of change, and that increases the risk. And I guess as an SRO, what's been outlined previously about the various approaches to security, managing risk, we do all of that. Seth will pick up on some of that in just a few minutes. As an SRO, one of the things I place a great deal of emphasis on is, independent audit, independent assurance, because I'm very conscious of, people will tell you things that you want to hear. So you need to have that constant validation, particularly on the security front. And finally, just a word on a different security issue we faced, and that's around digital identity and digital deeds. So for centuries in Scotland, you have conveyancing deeds, they get signed by the seller, and then two people have to witness them. And that means that you then have what's termed a self-proving deed. And in the digital world, you have to try and replicate that, and that's been a real challenge. And the main challenge is really around citizens don't have a digital identity in Scotland. Some may have a digital identity, but it's not a sufficiently robust identity that would work for conveyancing. So we acknowledge that we had an issue there. And I guess in every digital journey, there are always some real key points that you arrive at where you either find a solution and move forward, or you end up back in the boat and you're not really going anywhere. And for us, we arrived at a solution. And we arrived at a solution with the Law Society and various lending institutions, which was, we want to move ahead here. If citizens don't have a digital identity, who does? And we looked at the fairly closed, small community of solicitors and said they actually have a potential digital identity. You know, there's a group there which is heavily regulated. We know who they are. So what we did was we took an approach which was saying, okay, if citizens can't sign deeds, we want solicitors to sign deeds. And that was a challenge because you're going against hundreds of years of conveyancing. But we actually met the challenge, and certainly over the last few years, we've had in excess of 40,000 digital deeds signed by solicitors. So we have moved forward on that front. So at this moment, I'll pass over to Seth, who will go through some of the security and privacy issues in a bit more detail.
Thanks, John. Let's see if I can get this to work. So when John first approached us to work with him and his executive team at Registers, we were very proud to do so. Scotland has a well-deserved and long-standing reputation for land and property registration, and it was thrilling we were really thrilled at the prospect of turning one of the world's oldest land registers into its most modern. And as John has already said, we'd worked together on the Crofting Register, which was the first digital register for Registers of Scotland, so it was a good natural extension of that work. The challenge that Registers faces in terms of meeting the needs of ever-evolving customer demands in cost and budget-constrained times, whilst also wanting to capitalise on the opportunities of the data economy, is a challenge that's faced by many organisations, regardless of whether you're in the private or the public sector. And certainly in the UK, and I know here in Australia, the digital revolution in government has offered a solution to that challenge, designing innovative online services that improve customer service satisfaction, but at the same time can be delivered at lower cost. And at the heart of these services, and really their lifeblood, are ever-increasing flows of information that link people and organisations together. So whether you're the family applying for tax credits online, whether you're the police force sharing crime and health data with other agencies, or whether you're a land registry sharing property information with solicitors, realising the benefits of digital transformation is dependent on managing, sharing and linking detailed information more quickly and more easily than ever before. So when we first started working with the team at Registers, one of our first priorities really was to help them understand that digital transformation would be a lot more than just designing some great, clean-looking and highly usable websites. It would be about creating a digital organisation, and that digital organisation would be designed to connect, to share, to collaborate with citizens and its partner organisations in new and innovative ways. And it would be about understanding how its digital information flows in and out of the organisation and how that would have to impact its approach to privacy and security. And for those of you that don't know Informed Solutions, we're based here in Australia, but also in the UK, and I head up the UK business. This is exactly what we do. We help organisations like Registers become digital organisations. And what we mean by that is more responsive, more innovative, more customer-focused, more collaborative, but always at the same time being conscious of our obligations and responsibilities with regards to privacy and security. And we do this by adopting a business change approach to digital. We engineer the end-to-end change that capitalises on the opportunities of the data economy whilst never compromising security. And we adopt a business-driven approach that helps executives in our clients balance the digital ambitions and the innovation ambitions of the organisation with the demands of the customer and the need for an appropriate level of privacy and security. It's a holistic view we call transformational thinking that considers all aspects of the journey ahead as we help organisations like John's re-engineer their operations. And what we mean by transformational thinking is where we mean reimagining how these organisations like registers work, how their staff and their workflows look after their customers, and what role innovative technology and data services have to play in that. It means understanding our customers' end-to-end journey, and not just the journey through our front office and on our online services, but how that digital journey is fulfilled through the back office as well. And it means understanding how customer and corporate information is going to flow in and out of the organisation, and how open data may be used by third parties to unlock further innovation. So this is certainly not just about new websites, and it's certainly not just about new e-services, but it's about how the whole organisation works together to fulfil the customer journey in a secure manner. And you can see that once we begin to think in this way, digital transformation is going to bring about changes far beyond the IT department. At Registers, it's going to impact pretty much every aspect of how we look after and share information. We're going to introduce new technologies, phasing out the legacy registration estate and bringing in a more responsive technology estate, new case management systems, new online services implemented through Agile and DevOps practices. We're designing new business processes, and these aren't business processes that are just digital versions of existing paper processes. These are new processes designed to be implemented and successful for when we become a digital organisation. And these processes will take advantage of the automation opportunities that our new, more connected technology estate will afford us, and they'll be designed from a customer's perspective, not a caseworker's perspective, ensuring that the end-to-end journey of dealing with registers is as smooth and as efficient as it can be. And we'll be sharing more data with the outside world, not just as part of our e-registration services, but also as part of our commitment to the Scottish Government open data policies and our commitment to our commercial data partners in the property search sector. And so we'll be collaborating more than ever. John has already mentioned early attempts by registers and others to introduce e-conveyancing and e-services some time ago. I think, to borrow your words, a false dawn in many senses. Today the approach is different, and we're working hand in glove with our partners from Scottish Government and hand in glove with our partners from across the legal sector to make this a success. And all of this will require new working practices, new skills, potentially some new staff, and certainly a new and evolved culture at registers. And you put all of these ingredients together, and then through automation you speed up the engine. And the property market moves ever more quickly, the customer expectation is ever more dynamic, and that means we've got to take advantage of the automation opportunities when they arise, allowing the technology to take more of the strain in mundane tasks, whilst the registration experts focus on customer service and more complex cases. So when we talk about reimagining organisations like registers, we really do mean nothing less. But all of these innovations, new technologies, new data, new linking, new sharing, more collaboration, they all present a challenge and an opportunity for how we're approaching privacy and security. So how have we taken this forward within the programme itself? I think the first priority for us was obviously to secure executive understanding and buy-in to the scale of these changes. And to do this, we spent a fair amount of time with the executive team and the main board to help them understand the digital opportunity and what would be necessary to realise the opportunity. This exercise produced an initial roadmap that was then built into a more detailed digital strategy, and privacy and security were at the heart of that strategy from the word go. And this is a crucial step in bringing the executive team together and generating the common understanding and the common sense of purpose that we know is so vital when getting digital transformation right. And a key early design parameter of the programme and its business case was ensuring that it balanced the need to innovate with the need to maintain an appropriate level of privacy and security. And to do this, we ensured that the requirements of legislation such as the Data Protection Act and the EU regulations on public sector information were built into our transformation plans. They were built into our original architectures and are now being built into the designs within every one of the projects within the programme. And before we all got too carried away, reimagining and envisioning all of the great new services that we could put online for the people of Scotland, we also paused and took a step back to examine our existing data holdings, to understand how fit for purpose they would be in a digital world, to understand how linking them to third-party data sets might affect data protection, and to ensure that our data management strategy was ready to meet the requirements of the evolved commercial model at registers. And we did this by adopting a three-tier model that first looks at how the strategies and the policies of the organisation will need to evolve before designing and embedding our new controls and checks into every aspect of our architecture and every aspect of our technology design. And nowhere in the programme is this more important than in our work on ScotList that John has already mentioned. ScotList is a national online land and information system that will allow citizens, communities, business users, solicitors to find out comprehensive information about any piece of land or property in Scotland within a single inquiry. John mentioned that the Deputy First Minister within Scotland has asked registers to lead on this initiative, and the first version will be ready for the autumn of 2017. As you can clearly see, the concept relies on combining and sharing a wide range of data sets in new and innovative ways. And these aren't just data sets related only to land and property. By developing an open data framework based on spatial data, ScotList will put in place an infrastructure where data from across a range of socioeconomic themes can be explored, integrated and shared. It's a hugely exciting opportunity for registers and the Scottish economy as a whole, promising to revolutionise the land and property sector with benefits that reach far beyond the solicitor's office and into the homes of citizens. But it's an opportunity that relies on getting the right balance of innovation with privacy and security. And again, we've worked at a strategic, an architectural and a technology level right from the beginning to build in the right, get that balance right and build in the right security and privacy approaches. Where are we today? We're in the early stages of the programme. We're completing the discovery phases, what we call the discovery phases within each of the projects. And these are the stages really that allow us to understand the detailed needs of users through extensive user research and to understand what technology and services are best implemented to meet those needs. I think we're in very good shape. We are about 6 months into a 3-year programme, and I think, you know, having directed a number of similar national programmes over the years, there's some very good critical success factors lining up which bode very well for the future. We've got an engaged and collaborative executive and main board. We've got a true understanding that this is about end-to-end business transformation. It's not just about online services. And we've got a board understanding and an executive understanding of the critical importance of aligning data and innovation ambitions with security considerations that are harmonised across the strategic, the architectural and technology domains. That's where we are today. It's a fantastic programme. We've got a fantastic journey ahead. We'd love to come back at some point and share with you how we're getting on. I'd encourage you to please keep in touch with John and I, and any of you that are interested in a trip to Scotland next year, please come and join us in the Registers of Title Conference in 2017, where we're going to be celebrating 400 years of the Sayziens Register, which is the world's oldest public register of property rights. Thank you for listening, and I hope we've got some time for questions now as well.
Just a question. You mentioned you were rethinking privacy and security. How does that actually occur? Is it driven by the culture, law? What's driving some of it?
Well, I mean, for us, again, it's not about the nuts and bolts of privacy and security at a technology level for us. I think our main priority was to try and work with John and his colleagues on the executive team and the main board to understand that just in the same way that digital is everyone's concern around the board table, so security and privacy and information security are the concern of everyone around the board table. So we've wanted to work through then quite practically in this new world that, say, ScotList will bring about, when our information is available far more widely, it's available to be linked with other third-party data sets. What does that mean for our data policies that we have within registers? What does that mean for our commercial model, how we might want to charge or not for some of those data sets? And then we'll get into the nuts and bolts about what does that mean for data management practices and the security and privacy technologies that are associated with them. But the most important thing is to make it a board level concern and get board level understanding. It's a leadership and a business question. The technology end of it is to some degree the more straightforward part.
All right, with that, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, we've got one quick question. Sorry.
So, Seth and John, thank you for your presentations. Byron Reeson from the 808. My question is, I guess, directed to both of you, but as one, you made reference to collaboration with other partners, maybe other parts of government, or banks, etc. I'm interested in that thread on identity, either what has been achieved or the potential for other parts of government to leverage the identity management approach that you took with the project.
Yeah, there's so much been going on both within the programme and some of the activities just in advance of the programme. And we've done a lot with, I guess within Register Scotland, we're quite a helpful place within the Scottish economy because we have a very strong relationship and interaction with the legal community. As an organisation, a number of years ago, we actually issued digital signatures ourselves to the legal profession. And that was a fairly arduous undertaking. And even just the ongoing management of digital signatures has been a bit of a challenge. So we're delighted the Law Society is coming in and will take on that responsibility. But as part of that original role that we had, we obviously had all this engagement with solicitors. We built up a database of information on the identity of solicitors, and we've been able to share that with other parts of government. And it's one of the kind of unheralded parts of transformation within wider government. It's about sharing information that one government department has captured, using it to assist with what another organisation is doing. So in Scotland, we now have our own tax powers within the UK. And the initial taxes that came in, effectively they were being paid via solicitors. So instead of the new tax body actually having to go through and replicate all the steps that we'd taken to identify who their users were going to be, to get them registered, with the agreement of our users, we were able to provide access to our database, and we did a behind-the-scenes linkage to assist with that as well. I mean, it's the appetite and the landscape for change in Scotland couldn't be better. I mean, as an SRO for a very expensive programme, the one thing that worried me at the outset was, you want to do all this change, but nobody's really that interested, and it's great to be in a position where it's actually the opposite, where one of your biggest worries is that we can't deliver at the pace that our customers want, which is quite an unusual position to be in, but certainly a welcome position.